Okay, so let's get started. I'm gonna have my reference photo here, and here's my paper. Yours will be much bigger. Again, you don't want to trace it, you just want to kind of sketch it out as best as possible. So you want to sketch the outline of the face, try to get all the features. You may want to include more than one face, so if you have another photo you can kind of layer it, maybe do another face, or you'll have much more room to play with on your page. So you want to just start by lightly sketching out the details of the face. Nothing too much, not too much detail. The next step after that is you're going to either use a ruler, if you want to mimic something like this one where the squares and the straight lines break up the piece, or if you want to do something a little bit more fluid. If you want the straight lines, you're going to use your ruler. You're going to line it up and just do a couple different lines, kind of creating a few different grids. And you'll see that here. I've created some small ones going down and across, a small one through the center here, and then some larger grids over here. And then some spots are just completely empty. Okay, if you wish to add the lines freehand, you could do something like this. You just see I kind of drew these kind of swirly lines free-handed around the face. So you can do either or. You could either do just the contrasting straight lines, or you could do kind of freehand lines. But the idea is to break up the portrait into multiple different sections. So unfortunately it's hard for me to draw while I hold the camera, but you can kind of see that when you create these freehand lines and stuff, you're creating different areas. So for instance, this area right here, and I'll just outline it so it's clearer, would be one specific medium color. So maybe this is just pencil drawn with actual pencil shading. Maybe this one that's right next to it is in colored pencil, and maybe this one that's next to it is like a pattern. So every time you break up the image using either these freehand curves or these straight lines, you're changing the image. So here's another example where this straight line here and then this curve kind of intersects it. So this would become also a different color or shape or pattern or fill. So every time you break up the portrait using this method, you're going to be changing what it looks like. Okay, so as I'm working here, let's try and zoom in a little bit closer. I'm already finding a little bit of frustration where, which I'm sure you guys will experience, when I'm filling in certain sections, I'm kind of actually overlapping and kind of forgetting where these lines have been drawn. So if you notice here, I'm in colored pencil with a little bit of micron pen, and then here's this curve here, and I tried to get into this triangle to be just regular pencil and shader sticks. So that's like in this section. And same with here, this is regular pencil and shading sticks. So as you're working, you'll realize that you just kind of get carried away, and all of a sudden you've gone over some of the lines that you've set down. But that's okay, don't worry about it, don't get too frustrated with it. It doesn't have to be set in stone, just keep going. And also, you can see I'm starting to fill in kind of realistically here. And I'll go back to my photo, it's still different, I'm making it a little bit different. But then don't forget to go in and also add the pattern work. Okay, so here is how far I've gotten so far. Again, I'm starting to outline all the details in micron pen, up to you if you want to do that or not. Here's an example of like the quadrant being broken up. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. You see that? Okay, so inside this section, it's like a realistic colored pencil. Same with this one. In this section, it's a pencil with the graphite smudging. Here I'm adding a pattern. Here I'm back to the colored pencil. And I'm going to continue that outward as well so that it fills that section. And it's really hard, you get really confused as you're going. Don't be afraid if you go over a section. Once this whole thing comes together, it's really going to start to look really neat, and it won't matter if you went over a line or if you've fudged a section. In this one I added a pattern. If you guys want to come up with your own patterns, you can, or you could use the decorative paper swatches, which I'll leave out for you, and you can pull patterns from there. It's a great reference to use as well. Okay, so here's how it's coming along. Again, it's flipping back and forth between realistic, which would be like this area, and the pencil shading and the nose and things like that, and then totally unrealistic, surrealistic patterns and swirls and things like that. So alternate between the two, having this realistic and then in another quadrant a totally unrealistic. And also something I learned, just so you don't make my mistake, if you're going to do a solid, like here I have this solid green bar that kind of intersects the entire face, what you want to do is you want to go in and erase any details you may have in there with pencil. So go ahead and erase all those details before you put the color in, otherwise you'll see the details, and the green bar here is not truly opaque because you can kind of still see where the eye and the eyebrow was underneath. So have fun with this, experiment. It does take a while. It's time consuming and tedious. For me, I don't have any markers at home, so I'm really losing a lot of definition in these kind of designs because I'm only using colored pencils, but with the markers you'll get a much finer distinction. Plus you're also going to be working much larger than me, so you'll have a lot more room to fill in a lot more patterns and get into tiny little details and things like that. Okay, so here's how far I've come along. Again, I got a little sloppy here at the end, running out of time, so this is as much as I'm going to be able to work on it. But and I'll leave this copy in room 203 so that if you want to look at it and get any ideas, you can just see how I worked. Again, be much neater than me. I totally didn't erase my lines clearly. If you see, I have a lot of pencil lines showing through here. So you should really do your pencil very lightly at the beginning, otherwise you're going to see the lines showing through when you start to color them in. So either do your lines really lightly or go ahead and erase them before you put your color in. Up to you if you want to outline some of your details in Micron pen. Again, I did not have any markers here, otherwise you'd see some markers. Try to alternate between this kind of reality and this kind of fantasy, using the patterns and colors. Okay, and one more thing, if you guys want to use watercolor, you could use watercolor. If you want to create some sort of drip coming down, kind of like in some of these examples, which I'll leave out for you. You could use paint just to add a little bit of that drip effect if you need to. Also, if you're nervous about starting, which I know most of you are, feel free to practice on another sheet of paper. And then before you get started on the real sheet, the practice paper is always located by the door on your way out. So play around with the different mediums, try to incorporate this alteration between kind of realistic and fantasy, pattern, negative space, all these things, take them into account. So try your best. You can practice if you need to. If you want to see these pictures online, the web link is on the handout. And good luck.